In today's episode of the Health Collective podcast, we're talking with Kyle Spyrides, who runs Soul Gazing Photography, a visual storytelling and content marketing business, and the author of Amazon bestseller, Decide Your Destiny. Kyle talks to us about how we can actually decide our destiny rather than having our destiny dictated to us. Now, if you need any help with changing your own destiny in your health, whether it's your mental, emotional, or physical health, head to our website, thehealthandfitnesscoach.com, to learn about how our coaching can help you change whatever path you're on in your health and create a body that you love, that you desire, and that you're inspired to be in every single day. In the meantime, enjoy Kyle, enjoy the episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Kyle runs Soul Gazing Photography, which is a visual storytelling and content marketing business that works with business owners looking to grow and make authentic, lasting impact in the minds, hearts, and souls of those who they wish to send their message to. Kyle's also the author of an Amazon bestseller, Decide Your Destiny, looking at essentially living out a dream life and really creating a destiny that you choose, you create, rather than just one that is one of reaction that never feels completely in your control. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And he really looks at extracting the full potential in the individual by providing the spiritual strength and manifesting the ability to get what people want out of their remaining heartbeats on this spinning rock that we call Earth. So first of all, massive welcome to Kyle all the way from Australia. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And I'm tuning in from the bottom left of Australia. So a town called
Albany. Love it. So we will all need to descend upon Albany for our next summer holiday. I love it. So
yes.
Kyle, what I'd like to do first is just to understand a bit of your background that got you into what you do today. So Soul Gazing Photography, which is this one side, this sort of content marketing. And then we've also got Deciding Your Destiny, which is this author, slightly different kind of route of business that you've got going. So what was it that inspired you to write this book, to start the photography company? What was it in you, or what moment in your life really inspired those two visions that you have?
Great question, Rita. I think that probably there was people that inspired me in my life. It was my step-grandparents, my stepfather, my cousin in South Africa, who I looked up to like an older brother. And it was people mixed with difficult times that really inspired me to do something more than average, I guess, than just washing along in the currents of, whoever's decisions they may be. So I think for me, my life was quite, I guess, diverse and different. Born in Johannesburg, South Africa. My mother was an international model. She was on the sets likes of Charlize Theron, going around the world. And then I was being raised in the back of a pub in my granny's pub, and and kind of just sleeping on the back couch there and socializing, interacting with the adults, and just kind of having my own little community base. And I do remember some of those years, and I was very social as a young kid. I seemed to be able to socialize with the adults very freely and very easily, which is great. And that was good until I came to Australia, where my run around the world met an Australian man and brought me to Australia. And he wanted me to be in Australia because he thought it was safer for me than being in South Africa. And so he coming to Australia, my being social and everything changed because I wasn't around my known environment. I was in a very unknown, unusual, strange environment. Strange because I couldn't really connect to it. And so for me, I found that quite difficult at first, and then but luckily enough, I had two brilliant step grandparents. And for anybody watching the video, you can see them behind me. And my step grandmother had this. I was walking up the stairs, and she could see me clutching this teddy up the stairs, and she said she had this feeling that shot through her body, and this sensation, this message from God saying that she was going to be important in my life. And then like 12 years later, she was very important in my life. And both my grandparents were very important in my life when I was basically at the age of 14 out on the streets and I had nowhere to go, skipped a couple of trains, and I found myself down at my grandparents' house in the middle of the night knocking on their door. And they welcomed me in. They welcomed me into their home. They welcomed me into their hearts. They welcomed me into their, we were always welcome in their family, but they really welcomed me in, and they raised me as one of their own kids. They said, we look at you like a son of ours, they were my stable parents. And so I would go to Africa every so often, and the person I'd look up to as like an older brother of mine, Elaine, was murdered, and in robbery, and so he would feel the room, he'd feel the joy of everybody, and he just had this giving, abundant energy, and it reminded me of my stepbrother Clivey as well. They just their beings on this full room with joy and happiness and laughter, and they'd walk in and everyone would just suddenly lift, everyone would get 2 inches taller. It was just incredible. And so him like passing away, like I remember it just being a message to me. And now I've not only got to live for me, I've got to live for the legacy. I've got to take his message and like carry the baton. And so I guess I found that sort of obligation. If he can show up and shine and do that, then I've got to show up and shine and be in that way, which I wasn't in my teenage years. Inward bound because of years of abuse, mental, physical, emotional abuse, and challenges. And the only way I knew how to handle it was to go inward. So I went inward, and I believe I festered a dis-ease in my body. I created a dis-ease, and I found myself at 18 in an induced coma with a major bug eating a major hole into my heart. And in terms of what inspired both photography and destiny, Clivey, my step-grandfather, 2 months before I was in that hospital, I was still in school, and I was just sitting on the couch in my grandfather's lounge room, and he's an architect, so he created that lounge and created that space, and the light was flooding through the lounge room, kissing the side of his face, and he turned to me at this big boyish grin, and he said, "Decide your destiny." And I said, "What, Clive? What are you saying?" And he said, "Decide your destiny." I said, "But what are we talking about, mate?" And he said, "Make sure that whatever you do in your life, that you decide your destiny." And obviously, the 18-year-old kid, that went in one ear, went out the other. And it only came back to me 7 years later, through going over to Sydney, spending time with him, holding his hand as he passed away, and then coming back, so basically going from the East Coast of the country all the way over to the West Coast of the country, back and sitting on the edge of my bed and just saying, deep in prayer, just saying, "God, ether, Jesus, energy source, I just want to get on path. I just want to do the good work that you sent me here to do." And then that book came out of like my visual peripheral, and it had on the title, it's Decide Your Destiny. And then it had the photo of when I first came to Australia, and that in my ear I heard share your story. And so that's what influenced me to then go, okay, what is Decide Your Destiny? What was my grandfather talking about? What does he mean by this? What what have I learned over, at that point I had 7 years managing major health impact, and every, going into procedures, going into reception rooms, always looking at longevity. How can I stretch my life out? What can I, sit in patient rooms with everyone over 80, and you're this, 20-year-old kid. And so, I had to kind of go, okay, what is destiny? What does deciding my destiny mean? And I had to kind of backwards engineer where I had done that in my life, who helped me along those lines. And then that's where the book came from.
I love it. So it sounds like for you, there was a huge amount of turmoil through your adolescence, through your childhood, which had a really key impact on who you are today. And one of the things that I would sort of want to guide your destiny is a great phrase, great title for a book. But what do you classify destiny to actually be? Because there'll be a lot of people listening to this who are highly logical people who know that cause and effect, and we move through life, we make a choice. There's an effect that comes out of it. But destiny has an almost energetic or spiritual sense about it. And a lot of people won't necessarily relate with that word. So what would you describe destiny to me?
Destination. So yeah, exactly. You've got your left and you got your right brain. And I would reverse the words, destiny, your decide. And when I speak on it, I usually just, you're right. When I wrote in the book and I was going and sitting down with people, and some of them were clients, of mine in my marketing, like photography and video marketing business, and I would talk about the book I'm writing, and I'd get all that, how should I say, shuffling, and what is destiny? Who are you to know about destiny? You're a young buck, what do you think you're talking about? And so I got a reverberate, and so what I poise it to be is a destination that you're lining yourself up with. So for me, I had 14 years of kind of being shown the wrong way to raise or be raised, the wrong way to live out your life, the way to live as a victim on this planet, the way to be at an effect on this planet and spread, nothing of goodness on this planet. And then I got 14 years, 30 now. So I got, 14 years or so from my grandparent really kind of teaching me other ways, teaching me, hey, you're not a victim. Hey, you've got an obligation with your time on this planet. It's a lot more joyful if you're social, because I would ask my grandparents questions, and I'd say, what's the biggest difference between my generation and your generation? Well, we were a lot more social. We'd go and we'd babysit, neighbors' kids, and we'd go to this event, we'd go to that event, we'd help out there. We were always interacting with our neighbors. People were always over at each other's houses. They were social contact between being. So that's what I talk about when destiny is. What's that destination? It's basically like, for analytical, it's throwing a fishing line into the ocean, or into a pond that you want to be in, and then pulling yourself forward to that future, rather than pulling a fish out of that pond, pulling yourself forward to that future. And the of a string is because we can have times where something in the media hits us, or we get some bad news in our personal life, or someone might go on a bender, a friend might come over, and then all this sort of stuff. You can wane off target, but as long as you keep coming back to that target, and you know what that target is, it's essential. Because if you don't live by principles and morals and ethics, then anything goes. And and I've had friends like that, and what happened? Go figure. They selling drugs. They start doing this. They start doing that. They start hanging around with this crowd. One of them, and these are people from my school in the same year as me. One of them was in prison for a little while. And like, we would always try and, as a group, as a cohort, try and help those people, or we could literally see where their destiny was taking them. Like, this kid, he keeps behaving like this, if he keeps hanging around, these sorts of gang thuggy sort of people, he's going to end up like in this situation. And that's where I think it's really important that you do have principles and morals, ethics, and foundational things. And you don't have to, because something bad is said at, like, so for instance, at my grandparents at their they had a new preacher saying like bad things about people that were gay. And so they kind of decided, all right, we're going to step away from our church for a little while, because we don't really agree with this preacher. And they stepped away. And then when he eventually left, they went back to the church, to their church, and they got what they got from their church, but they chose and ethics were. And so you don't throw I think we live in a world where everyone throws the baby out with the bathwater, or we hear one quote from one person and then we just denote them. And I think the important thing about having that destination, having your destiny, is that you have your way to the left and right, but you'll keep coming back to that direction that you're wanting to go towards.
Absolutely. And I think what you said, going off on a bender or whatever it might be, but as long as you come back, it's the analogy I would always use is, if you're going from, I don't know, Scotland to Hawaii, there
Yeah.
is someone driving that plane, piloting that plane, who's constantly course correcting. It isn't a straight line. It's a constant being buffeted by the wind, the turbulence, and course correcting at every step, and knowing that that's where you need to get to regardless of what happens along the way. So and you've spoken a lot about your youth as well as other people's around you, and almost seeing their destination at such a young, tender age. So what do you see in the generations now, the youth of today? What do you see as maybe most challenging for them? Obviously, I know that we're in different countries, but there's probably a lot of similarities. And what do you do, or can you suggest that other people listening do to help, those kids, those teenagers, create destinations that serve them moving forward?
Yeah, great question. I think is, protecting your mind and having that sanctuary of your mind. And when my passed away, there would be my auntie had a kind of shrine or a logo to remember him, and that would be the location where there'd be photos and everything like that. And so, and I think that's how, like, you got to treat our minds, because, when I was, and I'm only 30, but it shows you how fast the world's changed. But when I was, growing up, a lot of the impurities that people that affected my life, some definitely would have come from TV and different sort of things, but a lot of it was drugs and alcohol and physical things that, like people take and them all up. But for now, looking at the youth, it's like there's so many impurities online. There's so many impurities, and much very hard to see a clear path. In my grandparents' age, they could trust societal structures to serve them, or they at least felt a lot more confident. And it's no surprise, or it's not new news that people have lost a lot of faith in institutions and societal structures that are meant to guide us. So I think it's very, very important we start to become the authority over our own lives and figure out, all right, how do I go to this person and he tells me this, I go to that person, he tells me this, I go to this person, he tells me this. Like, I'll be going in 5 different locations. Like I don't even know where to go. And so I think it's very important that we be very aware of how easy we can get sucked into feeds of fin and kind of binding powers that pull you in and become a mental slave, and be very aware of those shackles and break them off as soon as you can. And then also find great people, around you. I think one of the greatest things about writing the book was that one of the things during the coaching and training and learning, and it was, get on podcasts. And a lot of those podcasts, I've met people that have become friends and, have different, political, religious, different beliefs across the spectrum. But, we come back to, hey, personal growth. How can I be my higher self? If I'm at my higher self, then I can serve my community. How can I, kind of principles that are important. And I think, it's a tall order to think that you're going to find friends and family connections that are going to think and believe and have like the same views as you, especially if we're always told, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex, don't talk about money, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. It's going to be hard to find those people that are on the exact same page. But if you can find people that have similar values and principles, and hey, as long as you're not harming people, as long as you're not trying to force your way on people, as long as you're respectful, like we can get along. I think that's what the youth need to find, is they need to find those not gangs or hoods, but or bands, but you need to find people that you can collaborate with. I think that's the thing. We're in a collaborative economy where, hey, it's not just, I don't have just these 3 channels of getting my message out. I've got all these channels. And if I collaborate with people, help raise them up, then I can raise up. And then that's how we can get towards our goals.
Everything that you just said about the collaboration is sort of really rings true, especially as we were talking about sort of youth, or whatever that word means, generations to come, because there does tend to be this, and I think it's shifting globally, but there has been for quite a while this is me, and I need to push myself and kind of screw everybody else that gets in the way. And I think what we're seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, in Australia, but at least in the UK and the US, there's now almost one Generation Z now, or whatever this next one is. I'm not sure which letter we're on. It seems to be very much a collaboration of global unity. So it's like it's sort of starting to shift. So as someone, sort of to finish up, that was a very quick 20 minutes today. That went really, really fast. What I'd really like to do is give us just, from someone who came from a very challenging background and has done almost flip that around, what if listening to this, who feels that their destiny is decided, that I've come from no money, I've come from socioeconomic sort of poverty, and my destiny will be, a terrible one. What would you say is a good first step for someone who is maybe of that generation feeling like that to start to decide their own destiny?
I'd say, and it might be a cold, hard, head hitting the floor sort of embrace, but I'd say always steer yourself towards truth. We can steer ourselves towards feelings and comfort. And for me, there's times in my life I was a victim, and I could be a victim tomorrow. Like, it's easy to go into those things. You can go back into those circles, and you go there because we get some sort of feeling. If you fall, someone put this really brilliant for me. Like, if you just drive straight past them, but if they fall over, all measure of people will come over and go, oh, like, let me help you out. Let me help you out. So they're a victim over, and in that victim, they're a victim of that moment. They are getting love, and they are getting attention. And so you can understand why the victim mentality is so treasured, or align ourselves with it. And I'd say that comes from a feeling bang, and that comes from maybe not knowing other ways to get love and other ways to get attention, or to attention. So I'd say always go for truth, because truth might hurt more, it might sting more, it might hit you in the face more, but it's going to guide you in the right direction. And for me, I mean, I had to go make a call and go, this person is, my parent, like I'm supposed to live with them, I'm supposed to be around them, but like the truth is, this is not how a parent treats a kid. And as much manipulation and mental trickery and witchcraft, I had to go, what's the truth here? The truth is, I cannot blossom and grow, and I can't even live any longer in this. So I need to remove myself from these lies. And I found it easy to do that. I know a lot of people that don't find it as easy, or they go, oh, I know this person at 14, they would never have had that. But you don't know, if you've got that pressure, you might. And I think sometimes you have to apply that pressure on yourself. And if you're up and people told you like, oh, scarcity, abundance doesn't exist, then you need to like go and take a drive in a wealthy, abundant neighborhood and go, what's the truth here? There is abundance. There's people living greater than me. There's people living not as good as me, but the truth is there. But I've been brought up with this little boxed in lie. And I think that's what I'd say. Always go towards truth.
Well, what a fantastic note to end on. Always go towards truth, no matter how uncomfortable or painful it might feel. So look, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Aussie. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And as always, if you need any information about Kyle or what he does, then all of that will be in the description of today's episode. So feel free to go and check him out, whether it's his book or marketing company. But also, let me just say big thank you to all of you for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode.